Joining us now to break down the big news of the day, progressive activist Jordan Uhl. Jordan, welcome back to the show.
John, thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. How you holding up these days?
Every day's a struggle, man.
You really get into it on Twitter, as we've pointed out many times. I don't know how you keep it up, and we're gonna see if you can keep it up through a bunch of really horrendous stories in the news, so hold on to your butts. So let's start off with the big news from the past few days. Donald Trump has been accused of sexually assaulting and sexually harassing a lot of women. The most recent is E. Jean Carroll, and he responded initially to her accusations with a horrendous statement accusing her of lying, like threatening some sort of vengeance against her. But recently he said this, which certainly stands out. "I'll say it with great respect. Number one, she's not my type. Number two, it never happened. It never happened, okay?" And that sort of response was immortalized by Chrissy Teigen as reassuring to know the president only rapes hot people. So when you hear the president says that he couldn't have raped her because she's not his type, how do you respond to that?
Well, I think first of all, like this is like what she described in her piece is quite literally what Trump is on tape bragging about in the Access Hollywood tape. It fits the bill for several other claims from other women. And also it mirrors rhetoric from Brazil's president Bolsonaro.
Yes.
Like this is just like a typical like misogynistic fascist, like just I don't know how to describe it other than he's just a pig. This is what other people have said he does. This is what he said he does. How she looks now or how he perceives her to look is irrelevant to the story. I think another point is that mainstream media largely ignored it until he said this. If you look at front pages from major newspapers like Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal over the weekend, none of them had this story on the front page. And now once he says this horribly offensive misogynistic thing, now everyone's interested. So I think it's important that people recognize that she should have been believed from the go. People shouldn't have ignored it until he said this, and she should be believed.
And as should be obvious and probably is obvious to the sort of people that would watch this show, but we just have to reinforce this because I think there's a reason that Trump and Bolsonaro talk about rape the way they do. Rape is not about sex, it's not about having sex with someone or being turned on. It is a violent power dynamic. That is what is being exercised. So it matters not at all whether he thought that she was attractive. And it's just like number two, it never happened. How is that not number one? How is it not number one that you're claiming that it didn't happen? Anyway, right. Like you mentioned the lack of the media coverage, and I guess from your point of view, I mean, you've watched the way the media covered the previous ones. You remember Roy Moore and his candidacy and how easily the right wing just didn't believe any of it. For at least 40 to 50% of the country, do these sorts of claims, do they matter at all? Does it matter at all that these women claim that these things happened?
I mean, that's a tough question. I would want to think that people care and people believe them, but as we've seen time and time again, the media just floats this kind of this idea that maybe it didn't. There's a little bit of uncertainty here, and I don't know. We just don't take it seriously, and this is how these problems continue to happen. This is how Trump continues to get away with it, and how no one really seems to hold his feet to the fire over it. So it's really on us to demand better and ask for people to treat these issues the way they are, the serious personal matters, and whether someone's looks does not come into play.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say about this is, I was somewhat surprised when she came out with her account because I would have expected that a couple of years in we would have known about all of these sorts of things. Although I should reiterate that how long it takes a person to report a rape has nothing whatsoever to do with whether or not it happened. But she had said that one of the reasons she didn't talk about it earlier was because she didn't think that it would matter. She didn't want to get dragged through the mud. She didn't want to get death threats, and all of that came true. And so it seems like if there are other women out there that have had experiences, I can't imagine why they would come forward at this point knowing that best case scenario, a few people would be willing to listen, but it would have no effect whatsoever on Donald Trump or his political future, which is depressing. I apologize, but that seems like the case.
Right. This is the environment that the media has created by airing the comments from Trump and giving them publicity, more publicity than her original story. Yeah. You create this environment where women who come forward are then subject to attacks, are then evaluated based on their looks and other types of misogynistic analysis. This is what they've done, and this is the bed they've made, so they have to sleep in it.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.